Hello, friends. Welcome back. Today we'll be talking about K Narayan's story and Astrologer's Day. K Narayan was born in 1906 and died in 2001. He is a well known Indian English writer. He is a celebrated novelist, essayist, and story writer. Some of his famous works are The Guide, Waiting for Mahatma, Man Eater of Malgudi, and Malgudi Days. We know that Indian people are superstitious and trusting. Such people can be easily misguided and exploited by someone who is cunning and shrewd. The story, An Astrologer's Day, tells about an astrologer to whom people were attracted. He said those things which pleased and astonished everyone. Long practice had sharpened his perception. The astrologer had an incident in his life. He had to leave his village without telling anyone. As a youngster, he had stabbed and pushed a friend into the well in the heat of the moment. It is interesting to see what happens when he comes across a person from his village. The astrologer, without fail, used to open his bag and spread out his professional equipments at midday. His professional equipments consisted of a dozen cowrie shells, a square piece of cloth with obscure mystic charts on it, and bundle of palmyra writing. Cowrie shells are the small shell of a sea animal, and palmyra is writing about the palmistry which the fortune tellers generally carry with them. There was sacred ash and vermilion on his forehead. His eyes sparkled because he was continuously searching for the customers. But people thought that it was a prophetic light and they felt comforted. His eyes were considerably enhanced because they were placed between the painted forehead and the dark whiskers which streamed down his cheeks. Even a half-wit's eyes would sparkle in such a setting. To make his look more effective, he wound a saffron-colored turban around his head. People were attracted towards him. He sat under the boughs of a spreading tamarind tree. It was a remarkable place in many ways. There was always a moving crowd from morning till night. A variety of trades and occupations was represented all along its way. Medicine sellers, sellers of stolen hardware and junk, magicians, and above all, an auctioneer of cheap cloth who created enough din all day to attract the whole town. There was also a vendor of groundnuts. He gave fancy names to his wares. These names included Bombay ice cream, Delhi almond, and Raja's delicacy, and so on and so forth. And people flocked around him. A considerable crowd gathered near Astrologer too. There was no benefit of municipal lighting at that place. The place was lit up by the shop lights. One or two had hissing gas lights, some had naked flares stuck on the poles, some were lit up by old cycle lamps, and one or two, like the astrologer, managed without lights on their own. The astrologer did not become an astrologer on purpose. He did not know anything about the stars or the palmistry. He said things which pleased and astonished everyone. It was more a matter of study, practice, and shrewd guesswork. If he had lived in his village, he would have done the work his forefathers used to do. Is tilling the land, leaving, marrying, and ripening in his cornfield and ancestral home. But he had to leave his house without telling anyone, and come and settle down at a place which is 200 miles away from his own village. He had studied what troubled mankind. For example, marriage, money, and the tangles of human ties. Long practice had sharpened his perception. Within 5 minutes, he understood what was wrong. He charged 3 pies per question. He never opened his mouth till the other had spoken for at least 10 minutes, which provided him enough stuff for a dozen of answers and advices. 9 out of 10 people agreed to what he said. He used to ask the question, is there any woman in your family, maybe even a distant relative, who is not well disposed towards you? Or he used to say, most of your troubles are due to your nature. How can you be otherwise with Saturn where he is? You have an impetuous nature and rough exterior. This endeared him to their hearts immediately because even the mildest of us love to think that he has a forbidding exterior. The nuts vendor blew out his fare and rose to go home. This was a signal for the astrologer to bundle up. He picked up his cowrie shells and paraphernalia and was putting them back into his bag. But he looked up and saw a man there. He sensed that he is his possible client and he said, you look so careworn, it'll do you good to sit down for a while and chat with me. The other person grumbled some reply vaguely and the astrologer pressed his invitation. The other person said, you call yourself an astrologer? The astrologer felt challenged and said, tilting others' palm towards the green shaft of light, yours is a nature. The other person said, oh, stop that. Tell me something worthwhile. The astrologer said, I charge only 3 pies per question, and what you get ought to be good enough for your money. The other person took out an anna and flung it out to him and said, I have some question to ask. If I prove you are bluffing, you must return that anna to me with interest. If you find my answers satisfactory, will you give me 5 rupees? No. Or will you give me 8 annas? Said the astrologer. All right, provided you give me twice as much if you're wrong, said the stranger. The pact was accepted. The astrologer sent up a prayer to heaven as the other lit a cheroot. The astrologer caught a glimpse of his face by the matchlight. The other person sat down sucking his cheroot and puffing out ruthlessly. The astrologer felt very uncomfortable. He said, here, take your anna back. I'm not used to such challenges. It is late for me today. And he made preparations to bundle up. The other person held his wrist and said, you can't get out of it now. You dragged me in while I was passing. The astrologer was terrified. He said, leave me today. I'll talk to you tomorrow. The other person thrust his palm in his face and said, challenge is challenge. Go on. The astrologer proceeded with his throat drying up. There is a woman. The other person said, stop. I don't want all that. Shall I succeed in my present search or not? Answer this and go, otherwise I'll not let you go till you disgorge all your coins. The astrologer muttered a few incantations and replied, all right, I'll speak, but will you give me a rupee if what I say is convincing? Otherwise I'll not open my mouth and you may do what you like. The stranger agreed, and the astrologer said, you were left for dead. Am I right? Ah, tell me more, said the stranger. The astrologer continued, a knife has passed through you once. The stranger bared his chest to show the scar. What else? He asked. The astrologer said, and then you were pushed into a well nearby in the field. You were left for dead. I should have been dead if some passerby had not chanced to peep into the well, said the stranger. When shall I get the man who stabbed me and pushed me into the well? The stranger asked. The astrologer said, in the next world, because he died 4 months ago in a far off town. You will never see any more of him. The stranger groaned to hear it. The astrologer continued, Guru Nayak, you know my name, the stranger said, taken aback. I know all other things. Guru Nayak, listen carefully to what I have to say. Your village is 2 days' journey due north of this town. Take the next train and be gone. I see once again great danger to your life if you go from home. He took out a pinch of sacred ash and held it to him. Rub it on your forehead and go home. Never travel southward again, and you will live to be 100. The stranger replied, why should I leave home again? I was only going away now and then to look for him and to choke out his life if I met him. He has escaped my hands. I hope at least he died as he deserved. Yes, replied the astrologer. He was crushed under a lorry. The other looked gratified to hear it. The stranger gave a handful of coins to the astrologer and left. The astrologer picked up his articles and put them into his bag. He reached home by midnight. His wife was waiting for him. She opened the door and demanded an explanation. He flung the coins at her and said, count them. One man gave all that. 12.5 annas, she said, counting. She was overjoyed. I can buy some jaggery and coconut tomorrow. The child has been asking for sweet for so many days now. I'll prepare some nice stuff for her, she said. The swine has cheated me. He promised me a rupee, said the astrologer. His wife looked up and said, you look worried. What is the matter? Nothing, replied the astrologer. After dinner, he told her, do you know, a great load is gone from me today. I thought I had the blood of a man on my hands all these years. That was the reason why I ran away from home, settled down here, and married you. He is alive, she gasped. You tried to kill? Yes, in our village when I was a silly youngster. We drank, gambled, and quarreled badly one day. Why, think of it now. Time to sleep, he said, yawning, and stretched himself towards the pole. He is relieved of a great burden now. That is the end of the story. I hope you have liked it. Please like, subscribe, and share it to your friends. Thank you very much for watching.